Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our February Albany Port District Commission meeting. My name is Georgette Stephens, and I'm the chair. So we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves.
Joe Coffey, Commissioner. Mike Simplani, Commissioner.
Bill Ring, Federal Marine Terminals.
Jim Teller, Security.
Tony Vassell, Maritime Business Development Manager.
Christine Studo, CFO.
Megan Daly, Economic Development and Procurement.
Patrick Jordan, General Counsel.
Richard Hendrick, CEO.
Thank you. So everyone should have received a copy of the meeting minutes from our January 22nd meeting. If there's no changes, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Rich for the CEO update.
It's been busy but quiet since the last meeting. We're proceeding with that foundation cleanup at 801 Smith Boulevard, which will eventually give us that laydown area for Federal Marine Terminal in their lease expansion. We're due to have our first row barge slip movement in the middle of March, and we're working through the DEC new lease requirements. We expect it will be signed probably midsummer for a 10-year period on the building next door. Other than that, at this point, that's about it.
I can give two now. So one related to the port's expansion project, and each month we give an update on how we're doing with the permitting process with the town of Bethlehem. We have submitted all of our, hopefully, knock on wood, we have submitted all of our requirements for to get us through to the final GEIS. We've it's a 1,600-page document that's been submitted that includes the draft final that was accepted, a supplemental that is a part of this final, and that is in review now. We have already started talking about working on the findings work, which typically a town may do, but in this case we're going to take a first draft of that, but the town and their approved engineering team is reviewing the final documentation. It's quite frankly taken longer than we had expected that review period, and I think even longer than their expectation may have been, simply because of schedules and perhaps the depth of the material, even though it's pretty consistent with what we've been going through. But so we are having what we call a workshop type meeting later this week to go through that review and really try to button things up and see if there's anything else that may be needed. But as of right now, we are not set on their calendar. We're hoping to get on the second week of March for action with the town planning board But that's not been confirmed yet.
Who's that meeting with to button things up?
With the town,
Oh, it is,
with
okay.
town staff, town planning staff, and the town, engineering team. So that should hopefully be good progress. We do, weekly phone calls, with them to keep track of it. We had ours this morning, and it was working toward the same thing. We're quite aware of an aggressive timeframe and our, desire to get there, and they seem to be working toward that as well. The other thing outside of that I would mention is, related to the, Tiger project update. As we recall, there are 6 component projects. Big Lift is done, Wharf is done, as Richard mentioned, use of the Row will be this month, or March. And the near final design drawings on the next warehouse are done and working toward the bid documents that we'll be reviewing this week as well. So that third item is moving forward.
Any questions for you?
No, but just maybe more of a comment or observation, like how Michael would do too, that, you know, if there's like a map that you have specifically with the ongoing projects that shows some of the different
Yes.
facilities and the different stages of completion.
Okay.
Periodically, you know, this might be helpful.
Yeah, but
Okay. We'll do that, and the reason I'm looking over your head is because I'm looking at that, that's basically been our Tiger project map. And so that's a good point, we would use that as our base. Number 1 is complete, and number 2 is complete. But the sequencing of, some of the others have adjusted.
Switch over,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I'll update that, and even, our bounds have expanded a bit, where 3 is in our scope.
Probably would hurt maybe just to update that.
Yeah.
They know what I'm thinking, is almost having like a little, for each of these projects, just have a little thing that goes off to the side that shows like a calendar, or like a bar chart.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
kind of where things are.
That's good, that's a great idea, because
It's simple to maintain.
and we've had to do that with our, federal reporting too, of updating, timeframes, so we've got that.
It's a bleeding document.
Yeah.
Thank you, Megan. So as you may recall, the team sent out a request for engineering and technical services as it relates specifically to the wharf and the new property. They have received 8 responses and invited 4 firms in for interviews. From that, it was whittled down to 2 firms who were asked to submit a scope of work and pricing. And so the team is recommending Moffitt Nickel. Joe, that you were also involved in those interviews, so I don't know if you have any additional comments or if anyone else wants to add.
I thought the process that the staff used to get the initial request for qualifications was pretty well reasoned. I thought we had some interesting and diverse responses from different teams, folks that we had worked with in the past, and some folks we had not had worked with before. I think frankly it was affirming and positive to see the level of response and the depth of responses that we had from the teams that responded to the original request for qualifications, and the interviews I thought were interesting, and the different teams approach it in different ways, which is as an owner who gets these things periodically, who's been a consultant on the other end, it's always intriguing to me to see how people, when they bring different teams to the interviews, who they bring to the interview, who's actually going to be doing the work. I always think it's a little interesting, but I thought the winnowing down process, the way they were weighted, and the folks that we had requested proposals from worked pretty well. It was a little, I think, I was a little surprised to see the difference in the fee proposals from the 2, but in a way, but not in a way, because I think, again, you know, you have the larger some of the large organizations have deeper overhead
Mm.
that they have to kind of support, and I think that's reflected in the proposals. I think the recommendation from Martin and Nichols is the best one, even if the fee wasn't the lower, because I think they included more items, you know, in the base scope of the work, and I think they frankly they just had a better handle on what needs to get done, from my perspective. Is that
I would agree. I would agree their relationships with the offshore wind industry and some of the specific potential relationships with Port of Albany and Hampshire will be helpful for the best initiation of the design and permitting.
Yeah, I think all the teams had some relationship with some
No, that's a good point.
offshore, which was helpful. But again, I think, as Nathan points out, I think what we wound up at the end of all this process was something more in place.
I would want to say there were some great teams.
Oh, yeah.
It was not easy. It was great work, great interaction.
So before you, we have resolution 6-2020, which says that the review team determined that Moffett and Nickel to be the qualified and responsive bidder and recommends awarding them at a price not to exceed $365,598 and authorizes the CEO to execute the necessary documents to award the contract for engineering and technical services to Moffett Nickel at a cost not to exceed $365,598.
I move that we adopt resolution 6-2020.
Second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And again, good job, Nathan, to you and your team. And your chair.
Thanks for everybody's input too.
Yeah, thanks for your expertise. So next we have additional funding for environmental planning and engineering services. As you know, as we've gone through the process of approval from the town of Bethlehem, there's been some additional items that have been requested by the town for the port to take on, and some of that includes the public meetings that we've been having, the environmental justice pieces. And so those were outside of the scope of work that was originally, that we had originally entered into contract with McFarland Johnson. And so the resolution for 7-2020 is to authorizes for the performance of those additional services to secure our seeker, the town of Bethlehem Planning Board. I don't know, Megan or Rich, if you guys have additional comments about that and the need for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say there were specific tasks related to it. You really identified it, but there were a couple of additional requests that were not foreseen in the original, even the scoping document that we had settled with the town of Bethlehem back in March, so it would have laid it out. So that was the addition of additional substantial traffic work, addition of a whole supplemental process, and quite extensive public interaction and public response, and also a little bit more work on the visual impact assessment that was required because of the difference in the height that we're asking for based on interactions with the offshore wind industry and manufacturers that would require an additional height. The town required additional visual impact. Also a little bit of additional work on climate change assessment, and some of additional meetings. We had quite a fair amount of meetings and comment work in our original scope, but there was additional. I think this time frame is just a little bit longer than we had anticipated, frankly. And the one thing I would point out is we feel like we're at the close to the end on this. Also, we've had a fair amount of support from the National Grid grant on this work. And we have drawn all that funding down. So as a reminder, National Grid helped us with feasibility, some market assessment, and some marketing work to the tune of about $251,000. So we have drawn that down.
What was the original contract fee to do the work?
So we have paid McFarland Johnson just under $250,000. That includes some of the original feasibility work and this whole seeker process.
And so this money would get us to the end of the finish line?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so before you, we have resolution 7-2020. Again, that given the additional outside of the scope, the original scope of work that was developed, McFarland Johnson is needed to take on some additional work. And so it authorizes, APD authorizes the performance of additional services by McFarland Johnson to secure seeker and town of Bethlehem Town Planning Board approval at a cost not to exceed $97,500. Take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So the next resolution before you is a review of our annual contracts. We had actually talked about this, I think, at the last meeting. And so that form, that spreadsheet has been updated to only list contracts that are currently open and ones that are currently underway that have not expired. Pat, do you have any? They're UHY, which is our auditing services, as well as Interbid, which is our security IT consultant.
Right, so in the notes there, we added that this is UHY's final year in their agreement, we will go out to bid presumably this summer, so we have a good amount of time to put that together. Interbid has 4 more, this is one of 4 more approvals.
Last year was the first 5 year. This is the second of 5 years. This is number 4 commission. I pulled out our computer contract because that is not, that basically started that last May, so that would be a standalone resolution when that comes up, and we will be determining whether we're satisfied with them or not in the next few months. After this, for our discussion last month, I pulled out Ostroff as a standalone, requesting an additional year of their services, and we will have to bid separately for that as well during this year.
And so this is a requirement as part
This
of
is
the
a requirement
public authorities
of
law.
Public authorities
That
law.
we review them annually.
Correct.
Does anyone have any questions about the current list? If not, before you, we have resolution 8-2020 that outlines that the Albany Port District Commission has reviewed the contracts enumerated in Schedule A.
Move that we adopt resolution 8-2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And so the next one goes into the Ostroff Associates. Rich, do you guys want to talk
Sure,
about
so
that?
as we discussed last month, their services ended. We have not done an RFP for it yet. We will do one this year. We are, to say, neck deep in with their services on a weekly, if not sometimes daily basis, with the expansion project with 700 Smith. That we feel like it's in our best interest to continue their services and ask for additional.
What exactly are they doing?
Setting up and attending a lot of state legislative and state agency meetings with us. They get the meetings a lot quicker than we can, but they are doing all of their government lobbying, state government lobbying for us. And we have been, I would say, successful with all of our requests currently and in the past with the performance that the office has handled for us. They only do lobbying for us on the state level and local level, though, nothing national.
So that's when you have grant applications in, permits in, those kind of things.
There's only so much we can do in that, right, procurement? With the procurement law, there's only so much law. But I understand what you're saying. The meeting.
Yes, with grants, with initiatives, with interaction with the different state agencies. Could be just a little bit more specific in the executive session, if that would be okay.
Would be helpful.
And so, because we are midway through the process with the expansion, I think is why the team is requesting that we do a 1-year renewal option, 1-year contract with them at a cost not to exceed $60,000 with the thought of going back out to bid towards the end of this calendar year. So if there's no other questions before you, we have resolution.
We defer that until we have a discussion.
Oh, sure, yeah. You want to go after executive session? Yeah, no problem. Definitely table that for the Then we want to go into maritime, the report. You know, it's been, things have picked up from where we were at the end of the year, which is exciting to hear. Do you want to start?
Okay, thank you, Chip. Here we are, a new decade, the 20s. Wonder if it's going to be like the roaring 20s of a century ago.
Hope it doesn't end that way.
Right, exact. Picked up on that
I wasn't there when that happened.
one. Contrary to public opinion, also here. Going to cover ships, barges, tonnage, and longshore hours first. And then we'll cover the major market sectors, looking at the developments, the actions, and being taken, results in the future. Taking a look at the ships and barges report, page 1. On the top left, the chart is the outbound. We had 1 heavy lift project ship and 1 scrap ship, for a total of 2 on the outbound side and none last year. And you shift over to the right, the inbound side, we have had a heavy lift project ship and a wood pulp ship, total of 2. Then if you go down about 3/4 of the way down after the year to date, you see that we handled none last year and 4 this year. Now February, this month, we've handled 5 ships and barges, and that will probably be our total. Last year it was 3. So we'll bring the 2-month total 9 this year versus 3 last year. Then, if you would please turn to page 3, the tonnage year to date. Once again, top left, outbound, we saw the scrap ship for around 28,000 tons. On the inbound side, the pulp vessel brought in about 5,500. 2/3 down, we have 35,000, 626,000 tons, short tons this year versus none last year. Then, if you would look at the longshore hours report, this January, 2709.5 versus 1253, increase of 1456, or 156% versus last year. So those are the numbers. Move into making some general comments now. In the heavy lift and project cargo sector, the 3 major heavy power generation manufacturers are still experiencing difficult times. One of them didn't ink any combined cycle plants during the fourth quarter. Normally, these combined cycle include steam and gas. And normally, we handle about 2 of those a year. So looking down the road, no contract ink in the fourth quarter. We've been talking about 2 major projects for a while. One in northeastern Pennsylvania that popped up in 2019, and she's been put on hold indefinitely. The other one that we began working on in 2018 was put into litigation, came out of litigation not too long ago, and should be moving in the fourth quarter of 2020. That's indications we've received in making the contacts. Now, the impact is being felt in the shipping industry. There's a company called Zia Marine who began in 2013, and over the years they acquired Rickmer's Lining, a big break bulk Trevi lift project cargo carrier, and also Intermarine. So just recently they filed for receivership. So that's an indication of the activity that's taking place. Their 70 ships are being bought by some other companies, and so it changes a lot of different things going on. Now, part of that is the impact has been because of the tariff situation, and now the coronavirus has impacted the container carriers like no other thing has in the past. They had already been canceling or blanking certain shipments. Now they're blanking even more. Factories are shut over there. They haven't seen anything like this maybe 50, 60 years, something like that. And they're saying it might get better from that standpoint in the second quarter, but who knows. Bill and I had identified 3 projects in the Ohio Valley, and we had before gone out to western Pennsylvania and eastern Ohio and secured some of those contracts or pieces of business. And these 3 are down in the Ohio Valley, closer to, one is Hannibal, Ohio, right across from Parkersburg, which I used to cover in younger days with the Illinois Central Railroad. Certainly familiar with the place. And so they're out of reach from a number of standpoints, somewhat logistically, but also Baltimore has the roll-on, roll-off carriers who call there regularly. There's John Deere and Cat out there in Peoria who run their product historically through the Port of Baltimore. So we went after those 3, but a lot just can't compete. Let's see. In January, the new third-party logistics company that we got as a customer discharged a vessel with 2 transformers and 30 trucks associated with it. The plus to that was it's an inducement. The 6 subway car bodies that are sitting on our terminal, they were placed on the vessel because we had it coming here. That same individual, we're working with him on an import project coming into western New York, also on an export project to Brazil. I met with him last Thursday in Philadelphia, and he indicated they are working on a project in Michigan that they were looking to move via the Port of New Orleans, then up the Mississippi into the lakes. And Bill and I have begun talking with him. The suggestion was take a look at Albany, move it through the Erie Canal and on. So we're taking a look at that, trying to jump on that opportunity. Rich mentioned Ro-Ro. Bill will cover the Ro-Ro ramp developments when he makes his presentation. We're continuing efforts with the barge carriers in the South Atlantic and the Gulf to try to see if we could develop some overall barge business for the Ro-Ro ramp. And moving on to another commodity area, scrap steel. We had a shipped this January, which was a good start for the year. The prices on scrap steel dropped about $5 within the last month and a half. And that's basically a small price because the price is up around 170, so that's around 2.5%. The comment is that they think the prices will start picking up in March or something like that for next quarter. So it's kind of hard to tell with the scrap business because it's a commodity and all kind of waves happening in the world. Different things going on, Brexits and all kind of fun. Let's see, scrap, and then forest products. We're working on 2 rolled paper opportunities, one coming out of Finland and one coming out of Sweden. Those will take a while. And also, just a comment here, Federal Marine Terminal has performed a number of value-added services that has helped cement the pulp business that we're handling at the present time. And at this point in time, Bill, would you cover the successes that you've had with that?
Thanks, Tony. Just to recap the month, we've had, as Tony mentioned, 2 ships, 2 pulp ships, 3 heavy lift barges. The pulp ships carried 11,000 ton of pulp, and we just found out today there's another one 2 weeks down the line. So the pulp seems to be rolling pretty steady. So that's keeping us going, not only keeping ship hours up, but keeping terminal hours up. We're just constantly able to get stuff out of here, which is good. The OnePlus with pulp customer SCA, who I think I mentioned before, we just recently signed a 5-year agreement with them. They're going to give us a trial shipment of lumber in April, so which is good to hear because that means they're getting closer and closer, potentially moving that here on top of all the pulp that they have. If that's to happen, then we're looking at vessels probably every 4 to 5 weeks for the combination of both cargoes. So keeping our fingers crossed for that. We'll see how the New Zealand trial goes.
That lumber can be outside.
Inside. Yeah, it's all finished timber. So that's the space. So we see that rolling steady. We're seeing an uptick in the barge movements, the heavy lift. We're seeing more and more, as Tony mentioned, the container ships and chasing other cargo. They're moving heavy generators down by barge in New York. They are putting them on container ships. I think it's a little bit where they're saving money, line of services, that type of thing. And also, I think on some of these projects in the Midwest, I think the ones they're involved in, they're going to feed their generators and their turbines through here, and mostly by barge. That being said, we ended up about a week ago with 2 movements over the Ro-Ro ramp for March. One of them has been pushed back to May now. The original one we talked about, but now they're looking at a generator going to Ohio that they're trying to get it to roll on rather than lift it onto a barge. So we may have word on that this week for confirmation that that'll happen.
So that March 21.
Week of March 16th is the one that well, they were both supposed to happen that week.
Yeah.
The original one, when you came out, met with us, I found out Friday they got pushed back to May. But this other one is still on the table. We should know this week, because they have to make a decision this week whether they're going to do that or not. So, yeah, as Tony said, we're working on a few other projects, chasing a few other things. We are working with a supplier now. It looks like we're going to receive, roughly about 2,000 tons of steel by rail for the Regeneron project across over East Greenbush. So that'll be kind of nice. Give us some terminal work to do. Yeah, I think that's about. The services that Tony mentioned with the new pulp customer, they've asked us to move over to a scanning operation. So we're getting away from manually recording cargo out of here to now everything is barcoded and scanned out, which is something that's kind of pretty new for us. So we've invested into the building for Wi-Fi, the customer invested into the equipment, so that's the added services that we're doing. So far, seems to be working out pretty well. We seem to be happy with it. So we'll continue to do things like that, and the lumber would be the same thing.
That's good. That's all good news.
Trying.
Keep on trying.
Have to work very hard for them. questions for Bill or Tony?
Thank you.
Is there any other business besides the executive session?
I would like just to give an audit update. The auditors were here the first week of February, went very smoothly. I've had a few brief phone calls with Brian Palmer, and expecting to get the draft financial statements any day.
Good.
No, as of now, no audit adjustments of new client entries.
As expected.
So, we have a need to go into executive session for potential litigation. So with that, I take a motion to approve to go into executive session.
Motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Cheers.
Okay. All right, so, we tabled resolution 9-2020, before executive session, and would like to move forward with approving that, which is, the Port District Commission authorizes the CEO to execute the necessary documents to retain Ostroff Associates to provide government relations and representation for a one-year term, one-year retainer, at $60,000.
I move that we adopt resolution 9-2020.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and so before we announce our next meeting, I do want to recognize Michelle Tassini, our partner at FedMav and FMT, who's been a huge supporter of the port. A great partner is retiring at the end of February, so we want to wish him the best in his travels while he retires. I know he has some exciting things lined up. So our next meeting is Wednesday, March 25th. The board meeting is at 12:30. We have an audit committee meeting at 11:30. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So there's a audit meeting at 11:30 that day?
Yes. And then, yeah. And then the April one has the finance committee. Well, no, I think that was part of we switched them.
It doesn't matter.
This is I'm sure it's self.
Oh, we're off.
We're off.
Good stuff if we could just get the town to approve, right? So hopefully this